This is the Bubakar Ba Show for all the tips and tricks on improving your English, your communication skills, and on so many topics that can help you to improve your understanding in terms of life. I'm Bubakar Ba, and I'll be sharing everything that helped me a lot in terms of education, other people's experiences, culture, friendship, to just list a few. I'll be as well bringing some personalities on this podcast through interviews to share with us some of the life experiences. So if you are a student, you are a teacher, or just someone who's curious about learning to discover and know what you haven't yet known, then don't go that far. Bubakar Ba's show is here for you. The number one and only podcast in English in Guinea. Join me on Facebook, on any podcast player, on YouTube, and on Spotify. Welcome to the Bubakar Ba's show. Now, let's get started. You already know what I'm gonna speak about, don't you? Well, I'm really over the moon and so excited to share with you some useful do's and don'ts on how to improve your communication. Do you remember a moment where you held a conversation and it went wrong? Have you ever spoken to someone or a group of people and you did not get your message across? You see, there are many factors that always make a conversation go wrong apart from what I've just asked. And the irony is, we take them for granted, not thinking that those little things represent essential components in conversations. As we are speaking about conversation, now what is it really? I mean, what is communication? How conversations work? This question is so often asked in training courses, and if you were to speak about communication, how would you define it? The most common way to define this word is communication is the act of transmitting and receiving information. Everyone knows that, but we take it for granted. Why, in fact, do we take this definition, as I said earlier, less important, less useful? Why do we take it for granted? Or does this definition tell how we communicate as leaders, as managers, as teachers, as coaches, as parents, as human beings, in fact? Take this from Alan Barker's book, Improve Your Communication Skills, Chapter 1, second page. And I quote, "In the 19th century, the word communication came to refer to the movement of goods and people, as well as information. We still use the word in these ways. Of course, roads and railways are forms of communication just as much as speaking or writing." Moving on, the first thing I want you to understand is that communication can't take place if there is no source of information and the receiver. Right now, you are listening to this episode, mainly me, the host, and what happens here is I'm speaking and you are listening. As far as conversations are concerned, in this current situation, my brain is the main source of information, and your brain, on the other hand, is with no doubt the receiver. Then the language here, which is English, represent or might be the encoder I am using to speak to you or with you. The decoder now is the language you use to understand me fully. These are the basic characteristics of what communication is. Let's dive into how to improve your communication skills. I'm going to take you through some ways that can help you improve your communication skills. Tip number 1, listen to understand what the other person is saying. This is to say, you need to be a good and attentive listener. Paying attention is the key to this, meaning you should concentrate on what the other person is saying. Avoid completely distractions when you are into a conversation, because imagine how the other person might feel when you are finishing their sentences, or when you are laughing when they are speaking, or when you are coughing, or when you are thinking about something while the other person is making much effort to speak with you. Stop distractions in conversations and always develop your art of listening. While talking, don't get distracted by your devices, your phone, your tablets, your computer, or whatever it might be. Be concentrated on what the speaker is saying. Be a good listener. That's the best way to start a conversation. And don't listen to reply. Don't listen to intend to reply to the one who is speaking to you. Listen to understand, to grasp what they say, to just decode the message they are trying to send to you. Understand the meaning of what they are saying. This is really important. So learn the art of listening. Tip number 2, only use simple language. I mean, you should just deliver your thoughts clearly, in order, and in a simple and straightforward language. Cover one point at a time, and make sure that the message you are conveying is brief and clear. Don't use a complicated language in conversations. Most often time, people intend to use strong expressions and words just to show off to their listener that they know the language, they master the language. In fact, it's a big mistake. Try to use a simple language in order to let the other person understand you fully. And that leads us to tip number 3, which is keep face-to-face contact while speaking. When you are speaking with someone, try to have a strong eye contact with them. Try to have a genuine eye contact with them. Try to have a nice eye contact with them. So always keep a good eye contact while speaking. Tip number 4, have a good tone of voice. Do not have a monotone voice. Just speak more naturally, with confidence. Speak to them as if you were to be make things easier for them, to put them at ease, to understand you, and let them feel in your tone of voice that you are speaking much more naturally, with confidence, with clarity, with intelligibility. Tip number 5, have a good and positive body language. Have a good posture. Most of the time, when you are speaking with someone, or when they are speaking with you or to you, don't cross your hands. It's a sign which shows that you aren't interested into what they are saying, what they are sharing with you, what they are trying to convey. So try to have a good body language, and then have a good posture toward the person who's speaking with you. So it's very important, because we try to fit words with our body language. If what we say doesn't match the way we present ourselves, mainly when we cross our hands, the way we just use our hands, our eyes, all of these aspects should be taken into account. You should just develop a good and a positive body language toward the one who's speaking with you. Tip number 6, make your thoughts brief and specific. If you give lots of information in one stretch, then the other person is going to find it very difficult to fully understand your message. It's always important to be specific and brief for the other person to understand you fully. Don't bring into your conversation so many things to talk about, because it can make them confused about understanding you. It can put them in a state of being perplexed, being confused about what you are saying. Be specific when you are holding a conversation with someone, whoever they might be. That can help them to develop a way to understand you fully. One thing at a time. Be specific. What you have to look for is to give simple information to the one who is speaking with you. Tip number 7, treat the speaker as an equal. The reason why you need to treat the other person as an equal is that it can encourage them to think well. Don't tell them what to do or control them. What you would rather do is to value them and their ideas. Don't hold conversations with anyone if you know that you can't value their ideas, that you can't value them at all. My advice would be, give other people the respect that they and their ideas deserve. Tip number 8, set your objectives. Frame your objectives by questions, which leads us to tip number 9, ask quality questions. These two parts, to set your goals, to set your objectives, and framing them with quality questions can put to the other person that you are the right person with who to have this conversation. You have to frame the conversation with questions that can help you reach your goals. Don't just, again, ask questions as you just want to ask them. You have to prepare yourself before the conversation. And before that, you, both sides, you and your speaker, your listener, you should all know what you're going to talk about. Okay, it's not to improvise. You can add something else to what you are going to develop before the date, before going to the place where you are going to talk about, hold this conversation. Always share the common thing to be talking about. Have a specific topic to talk about or something you are going to talk about. And then you, as the one who's having this conversation with them, have objectives that you're going to reach out of this conversation. And it remains to know that you can't reach your objectives if you don't have good questions to ask. Ask quality questions. Questions, in fact, are the most obvious way to inquire into other people's thinking. This is what we have to understand. And tip number 10, the last one, share a common ground of understanding with your speaker. Don't be on the adversarial side. Don't show that you are always against. If you become tough into the conversation, the person may not be at ease to speak to you, to give you, well, their thoughts. You have to share with them a common ground of understanding. It's always important to be with them, to state out clearly what they think about the topic, the theme, what you are talking about indeed. So once here, you have now 10 tips and tricks and some techniques to improve your communication skills. And if you know any other useful technique and trick on how to improve our communication skills, then please share it with us in the comment section. You are listening to the Boubacar Bah Show podcast, the one and only in Guinea. Hey folks, I'm Boubacar Bah, host of this podcast. Just do me a favor. Subscribe to my podcast, share it with friends on social media. You can find the Boubacar Bah Show on YouTube, TikTok, Anchor app, Facebook, Spotify, and on any podcast player. God bless you. Get to work, keep working, and don't stop until the job is well done. This is the Boubacar Bah Show.